Greetings, servant family. Kyle Henderson here, in a place that I'm sure you're very, very familiar with. I've been taking trips down to Oklahoma City quite a bit recently, and every time I do, I drop a few things off at the house or things here at the office, and I thought today I might take just a few minutes to share a few things with you. I know that you're having an important meeting, a family discussion, time of conversation, listening, and feedback, and I apologize I can't be there in person with you. I still have a number of responsibilities on Wednesday evenings back in Stillwater, but I thought this might be the next best thing. I know that we've all heard a lot about the recent General Conference, feedback about what took place there, and reports and summaries and things of that nature. You've been probably hearing about it here this evening as well as part of this presentation. And so I thought I might try to share with you a little bit about where my mindset is at this time. And I don't want to do anything to take away from what the great leadership team and others are doing, but instead, again, just share with you kind of my thought process right now. And as I was listening in on General Conference and reading the updates and the summaries and everything that took place, as I read about the topics that were addressed and discussed, I'll be honest with you, none of them were topics that brought me to my personal faith in Jesus Christ. None of them were topics that led me to become a United Methodist. None of them were topics that led me to answering the call to be an ordained pastor. And so you might ask, well then, Pastor Kyle, what are the topics then that are important to you? What are the things that make you excited about being a United Methodist? And I'd tell you, well, it's things like the open table. You can see where I am here in your celebration center, so if you can think about this place visually, you know right in front of me is this massive, extravagant Lord's table. And I so appreciate its size because it reminds me, and I hope each and every one of you, of the extravagance of Christ's grace, forgiveness, and love. Because on that last night before he was crucified for us, he gathered together with his disciples, his followers, his friends, and he gathered with someone who was going to betray him, someone who was going to deny him, his other disciples and followers, and the women who most of the part were going to abandon him in his time of greatest need. And yet Jesus gathered with them at a table and he served them the bread and the cup. And so when I look at this Lord's table and I think about the open table in the United Methodist Church, it reminds me there's room there for me. There's room there for you, for each and every one of us, to be recipients of Jesus' extravagant grace, forgiveness, and love. Speaking of grace, I love the United Methodist teaching of prevenient, justifying, and sanctifying grace. I love that our life of faith doesn't just end when we receive and welcome Jesus into our lives. If anything, that's where our ministry, that's where our life of faith begins, as God continues to sanctify us, to shape us into the image of Christ that we've been created to be. I love that the connection in which we, especially smaller churches within the denomination, where this connection in which we can join together in accomplishing things that we couldn't do on our own. Church camps, ministries like Neighborhood Services Organization, and outreaches like Criminal Justice and Mercy Ministries, and so much more. I love that the connection helps us to get to know one another, the connection that has brought me and given me the opportunity to come and get to know you wonderful people here in just a handful of weeks. I love that it's in the United Methodist Church that we get to live out a faith that is intellectual as we think about and we reason through our faith, but it's not just about our head and what we think, but it's also about our hearts. It's about a faith that's lived out, sometimes, yes, through our words, but most importantly, through our hands and our feet as we share God's grace and God's love with the world. And so those are the things that are priorities. Those are the things that are really important to me, and that's going to be my focus when I arrive beginning on June 30th. Is going to be talking about those types of things and how we as a people of faith here at Church of the Servant, we can claim that name as we seek to be followers of the servant, the one who took on flesh, who came and lived among us, gave his life and was resurrected so that we might know true and abundant life. What does that mean to dedicate ourselves to the servant, the one who first served and loved us so that we might know how to serve and love one another as well? This past Saturday, I brought my kids here to Church of the Servant for the first time to introduce them to the church. And we showed them around this place. We showed them the chapel, and we showed them the offices, and we showed them the columbarium. That may not have been the wisest thing. It brought up some questions. They store what here? We'll talk more about that on the car. But we showed them the children's area downstairs, and they played on the equipment outside, and we showed them the celebration center. And And of course, they did what probably about every other kid does when they enter this place the first time. They climbed up on the rocks by the waterfall, and back here, my daughter just about busted her head on the baptismal font over here, her first time in this space. And we were driving home, my wife asked the kids, says, what was your favorite thing about the church? It was my 9-year-old son who spoke up first. He said it was the celebration center. I was surprised. I expected him to say the kids area, or the playground, or something like that, but he said it was a celebration center. So of course I asked the follow-up question, why? Well, it had the best theme. So I asked another follow-up question. What was that theme, buddy? Well, it's the garden, right? It's about the beginning. It's about creation. That's what I want to focus on when I arrive on the 30th. I want us to think back to the beginning, that we are a people who were created by a God who says, you are mine and you are beloved and you are very good. And then that God became a servant so that we might know the extent of his love and just how far he's willing to go. And then we know that we're called together as a people of faith to follow and dedicate our lives to modeling Christ's service for others. And if that's something that you can get excited about, if that's a ministry you want to be a part of, well, I look forward to seeing you on the 30th as we share God's kingdom amongst each other with the community of Oklahoma City and beyond. God bless, and I look forward to seeing you soon.